tell the world we are Liverpool, champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. But Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are all supporters, and we come from Liverpool.
Welcome to Redfix and Chill. This is Nick, your host for the show here, joined by fellow Aussie, well, we call him Aussie Robbo for a reason, Jimmy James Nicholson. How are you, buddy?
Very well, thank you, Nick, and have a good day. How are you?
Not too bad. I hear you had a bit of a, pardon the pun, shaky Wednesday morning. I just had to throw it in there. You're all good, though. For those that don't know, there was an earthquake in Melbourne today, a 6.0 or thereabouts, which was very, very odd. The first one since, colonial days, I think since like 1800. So you all okay after that?
Yeah, all good up here. There's a bit of a wild one. Didn't know what was going on, but all fine now.
Fantastic. Good stuff. And we are joined by a couple of guests. We don't have the regulars like Stephen or Peter. We have Douglas, who is coming to us from overseas. Douglas, just a little bit on Douglas Horn. He is a Liverpool FC fan, and he is also a LFC YouTuber. So thank you for joining us, Douglas. A little bit about yourself on this fine Wednesday evening for us down under.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Yes, my name is Douglas. I run the Dugout Football Channel YouTube channel. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a big red, and I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you very much for having me.
No dramas. Thank you for joining us. And to his right, which you probably can't see, but we can, we have Adam Murphy, who joins us as well. Obviously a Liverpool fan, but he is also part of the Redmen TV and Total Liverpool and also Total Screamers. So thank you for joining us, Adam. A little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure. Yeah, look, I'm 22 years old. Been a Liverpool fan for literally since as far as I can remember. And I've always been interested in content creation. So I've been doing my very best to as you've already listed, jump on a number of things to keep myself busy around the football club.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of the football club, we are here to discuss our football club. And first things first, straight out of the block, as we do, we will look at the result because it was another changed lineup for the Reds and we ended up winning again. Another convincing scoreline, 3-0. I think this is what the first time that we've won 4 away games, scoring 3 or 4 more goals, if I read correctly. And it was away to Norwich, just like it was on the opening day, with a very much changed lineup. But Mr. James, I'll go to you first. I actually did say 3-0 during our match debate show, and I said it was going to be 2 goal scorers. One person would score a brace, and someone else would nip in with the goal. And I'm happy to find that clip and play it again for you. But what was your make on the original result come full time?
Yeah, I knew you were going to mention that. Absolutely fantastic result. I think, looking at the result, I think over the past couple of years, we've always had slight concerns when it comes to these kind of games when we're going to play what we call a second string side. But what's been the biggest takeaway is the confidence and the manner in which we won that game today. Albeit Norwich didn't play their strongest side either, but their priority isn't the EFL Cup. Their priority is going to be surviving the Premier League. They've already been relegated 5 times from the Premier League, not a great record to have, so they'll want to change that. But regardless of that, for ourselves, to be able to walk away from Carrot Road with a 3-0 win and a convincing 3-0 win, absolutely fantastic, and it sets a really good precedent for where we want to go from here.
It's a good point. You mentioned convincing there. I don't know if it was really convincing because young Kelleher in goals, deputising for Allison. He had a bit of work to do, so I'll go to you first on this one, Douglas. Jimmy James, same, whatever. He says that it was a pretty comfortable game, but I think actually Kelleher had some actual work to do in goals. I think he ended up pulling off something like 5 saves and the penalty save. So do you think it was as straightforward as maybe the scoreline suggests?
I think to get the early goal was very, very crucial, I think, as well. It settled us down really, really well. Kelleher had a couple of saves to make. Obviously, the penalty save, young Connor Bradley, who I thought had a very, very good game. yesterday. He is very, very reckless in that tackle. But I have to say, I think Kelleher is learning very well from Alisson, because there were a couple of times where he came out really, really quickly. I think he headed the ball at one point as well. So, he's definitely taken some traits from Alisson Becker. That is for sure. And I have to say, I was very, very impressed I was actually impressed with the lineup. I think that's probably one of our strongest League Cup lineups that I can remember. Like, people are saying, "Oh, we've disrespected the cup with that lineup," but if you look at the team, we had Tsimikas, we had Konate, we had Gomez, we had Kelleher, Ox, Jones, Minamino, Origi. Is that really disrespecting the cup? I mean, I beg to differ anyway, but no, lots of positives for Klopp to take away, and Tsimikas has given Klopp a bit of a headache ahead of Saturday, because Tsimikas for me is completely undroppable right now.
I think the person who is not joining us right now, Peter Kofinas, would absolutely be frothing at the mouth having heard what you said just then, because there's been a bit of contentious debate about which left back is better. Of Peter being of Greek background and James being of a Scottish background. There's a bit of like, my left back's better than your left back, but we'll leave the left backs aside for now. I'll go to Adam next on this one here. We've sort of like gone on like the changed lineup in defence. We had Konate playing a second straight game, Gomez coming in, captaining the side as well. But I think up front is where we sort of like question who is going to deputise, because you can sort of pick a second, quote unquote defence, second midfield, but the front line is sort of like you only have the same sort of players. So to see Minamino score 2 goals, I thought was fantastic. Origi getting himself a goal as well and an assist, and young Cade Gordon starting from the get go. What do you think? Front lineup sort of like paid dividends, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, firstly, just to touch on Minamino, the composure for both of those goals, by the way, just incredible. And I think there's quite a few Liverpool fans that have been almost wrestling their own fan base, saying for a while now that Minamino is ready. He's ready to come into the first team. And obviously on the flip side, there's a lot saying that he wasn't even really good enough for Southampton, so how could he be good enough for Liverpool? I'm very much of the opinion that Minamino is a very talented player, and he certainly will come good. And it's games like this where he's shown his capabilities, he's shown his ability, and like I said, that his composure is that of an elite level striker. Certainly best down the middle. I think I'm not sure I enjoy him out wide as much as others, but definitely when he picks up those positions in the middle, like he did for both of those goals. Look what happens. We saw it last season a couple of times. Crystal Palace springs to mind. Origi, with Origi, I think everyone's just relieved to see him come out of like a really difficult patch. He obviously got a superb assist against AC Milan for Salah with that little dink over the defence. And today, I mean, look, aside from the goal and the assist, Origi looked lively. He looked active all game, which is something that we haven't really seen from him in a long time. It's, I think, a negative sort of connotation that comes around Origi a lot is that he's very lazy. He looks like he doesn't want to be there, or he's not enjoying his football. But yesterday, I think we all saw a different side to Origi. He was pressing high from the front. He was involved in play. He was making good runs. As I mentioned before, he obviously got his goal and assist. And then obviously look over on the right hand side, Cade Gordon. What an introduction to his life at Liverpool. I thought he looked threatening on the break. He obviously had that half chance where he sort of skipped his man, does a little ball roll and sort of shoots at the near post, just goes wide. But he, again, another player that just looked lively. He looked like he was there to not only really impress, but he looked like he was there to win and almost trying to show that he could potentially be that next substitute for when we do rest Mohamed Salah from time to time. So yeah, just I was impressed with the front line, but just all around, I thought they were brilliant.
Yeah, you make a good point when it comes to Origi, because I know we've sort of like slated him not so much for just because it's Origi, it is more so the work rate. And when he does come on, when he starts the game, what does he really offer us? Sometimes he seems that he's well below the pace of the game. He can't get into the game. But when he starts, and if Klopp said to him, look, you're going to be my main man down the middle here, you're going to demand a lot of the ball from the middle, maybe he gives him a bit of purpose. Maybe when he plays with the other team members, maybe it's more of a case of like, look, look, you just float around, do what you got to do. Don't worry about what other people are saying. You focus on yourself, which could be that thing there. But I mean, he had a couple of shots. He had one on target, which obviously he scored with the lovely header. And again, what a ball from Tsimikas. Whipping them balls in. I think he's on par with assists with Robertson now, and he's played less games or something like that, or just something to that effect. But Origi stepping up and scoring a goal was big for his confidence as well. And for all accounts, he says that he's looking to maybe leave Liverpool in January for more game time. He's been with us for 5 or 6 years or something. So, whether you want to say to Origi, thank you very much, and, see him move on, probably people a little bit divided on there. But Minamino, which you mentioned just there, and shout out to Peter as well, he says, technically and tactically, Minamino's strength is playing centrally. And when you do see him play centrally, and that's how he played, I think, against us when he was at Salzburg. He was playing centrally, and that's got him behind us a fair few times. And it's one of those things: is he going to be used as a second striker? Could he be a false nine if Firmino doesn't start? Who can we throw in there? And him not playing hurts me. Personally, I feel personally hurt. Why you sign a player on a steal, you can see he's perfect for the squad. He does what he needs to do, but he just doesn't get enough game time. I'll go to Doug on this one. Why do you think that is, that maybe Minamino doesn't start as often as he probably should?
Yeah, I think it's a confidence issue with Minamino. It all kind of started when we literally bought him. If you remember, thank you, Stephen. If you actually remember, the title celebrations, there was a wee bit. I thought that if you look at Minamino's body language, he wasn't really getting in the celebrations, and then I think it was Henderson put an arm around him just to say, "Oh, come here, just join in the celebration." So I think obviously having COVID has kind of affected him. I think he's a player who thrives upon fans. I think not having fans, has really, really affected them, but I think he's more a confidence player for me. The problem is with Minamino, we don't know his best position. Is he a number 10? Is he a wide player? Is he a false nine, like a Firmino? It really, really is very, very strange, because if you remember the Brighton game, I think we were playing him right wing. I think we played him attacking mid, and I think we moved him out to the left. So we don't know his best position. So I think that's maybe why he's not been playing as much. But if he continues the way he's been playing, then he will definitely get chances this season.
I think so. Adam, if not for Minamino, shall we say, if not for Origi, who else would come in, step into that front? Because Firmino's out, he's coming back from injury. We know the regulars, Mane, Salah, they got the night off. Cade Gordon got his debut, which is good. But do we want to be in a position where we were sort of relying on a Harvey Elliott to boss a midfield until his unfortunate injury? Do we want to see someone like Minamino be the player to come on in place of a Salah or a Mane? Or do we think that maybe we're looking at maybe having someone like a Cade Gordon come on with pace, who can be in the mould of Salah, play off the last defender, and have a bit of trickery around him as well?
Well, I mean, as Douglas mentioned, I think correctly, I don't think we're entirely sure what Minamino's best position is. So I think in terms of a Salah replacement, especially for when we give Salah some more rest time, I think Cade Gordon's the perfect replacement. As I said, I think he demonstrated his skills last night spectacularly. On the left-hand side, though, I'd actually see, and we saw it a little bit in getting him to those positions against Crystal Palace, I'd actually like to see Curtis Jones move into that position from time to time. We obviously know he likes operating on the left-hand side of midfield anyway. He's certainly more attacking and more creative than a lot of the midfielders that we do use on that left-hand side. And he gets himself into some nice positions to shoot. I mean, I'm sure you'll all remember that goal he scored against Everton last season that was just spectacular, and that was coming in on his right foot from the left-hand side. So I'd actually like to see him get used from time to time there as well. Minamino, in my opinion, obviously we're not really too sure what Klopp thinks on this one, but for me, Minamino, you play him down the middle of a front three, and that's where he's best suited. And I think, I think I'd probably look more at Cade Gordon as a potential player to come in from the wide.
What about, speaking of the midfield, you mentioned Curtis Jones there. We were actually questioning where is Curtis Jones at the start of the season, why we haven't seen him, the emergence of Elliott. Now Elliott's out and Curtis Jones has sort of like come back into it. And I thought he actually had himself a good game, had a couple of sights at goal. He does like to cut in and shoot. And one of the theories we had, one of the boys said, I can't remember who it was, but they said, when Coutinho was with us, Klopp would play him out left, out wide, and sort of like teach him to run down the wing, cut in, and then whip a ball, going for that R1 FIFA finish into the top corner sort of thing. So maybe is that what Klopp might be getting at by playing him on the left? James asked you this question. Is that what Klopp is getting at by playing Jones on that left side, or is he going to just move himself into that central position, not be a holding midfielder, but do the sort of things that what we said like Wijnaldum could do, because Jones is the Wijnaldum replacement, which is why I haven't bought another midfielder.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one with Curtis Jones at the moment, because when we have seen glimpses of him this season, he's sort of done a bit of everything. He hasn't really just sort of been assigned to one particular thing. There's been moments where we've sort of seen him actually playing as the left side of a front three for a moment. We've seen him come back into the midfield. Then last night he was playing that Fabinho role that we've sort of been that we've been seeing quite a lot of as well. What's amazing about Curtis Jones's game though is his level of maturity. All right, so he's only just turned 20 years old. He's playing out there with Naby Keita, who's got a £60 million price tag on his head. He's playing out there with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's got a £30 million price tag on his head, and obviously all the experience that comes with all that as well. But Curtis Jones was miles ahead in terms of his composure, in terms of his passing, in terms of being able to move the ball around the field. And with Curtis Jones, what is the right position for him? I don't think there is a right position. I think wherever you put him, he's going to deliver. I think that's what he does. And so if he's going to play in that sort of defensive role, he's going to be able to hold that really well. If we're going to get him to play on the left and really look to drive that ball that 20, 30 yards that we need him to do to get that ball forward, he's going to do that. He's still 20. I recognise that. We've got a lot of talented midfielders as well. But if he continues to be able to produce performances like what he did last night and like what he has done before, he's going to be the next on the list. So you're going to be looking at obviously Fabinho and Thiago when he's fit, starting alongside Henderson, your captain. And then as soon as someone steps out, the first name that's on that list is going to be Jones every single time. And he's claimed his stake for that, I believe.
So speaking of Jones being the midfielder, the other two that were in this starting lineup as well were Naby Keita and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Naby Keita starting again after the bomb that he scored on the weekend. Lovely finish, and again, I thought that was going straight over into the cop, but it went to the back of the net, which was good. But do we expect more from maybe Chamberlain, maybe Naby Keita as well? Adam, I'll go to you first on this one here. Does that midfield... Well, obviously this midfield is not what we'd normally expect to see, but if we are talking in terms of having players partnering Thiago and Fabinho regularly, if not Henderson, Fabinho and Thiago, where does Naby Keita and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain fit into this? Because when Chamberlain plays in that front line, he sort of like goes missing in games. It's not his thing. You can't drive forward from a front position when you're used to picking up the ball in the midfield and moving forward. And Naby Keita ghosting past a couple of players before offloading a ball, you can't do it as well from the front line, even though it doesn't play there. So where does Keita and Chamberlain sort of fit into this squad this season?
I think mainly due to the injury concerns we've had over both Ox and Naby, and again, even last night, there seems to be some concern over Naby's fitness. I think he kicked a blade of grass or something dodgy, and he's gone out injured. But I think just due to the nature of their injury concerns, they're naturally dropped to more rotational roles, and it's sort of how they're able to deal with that. And look, they're both fighters. We've seen that they're both fighters. They come back into the starting 11. I don't think there's any question over the work rate or the efforts from either of them. For Oxlade-Chamberlain this season, it hasn't quite worked out the way I'm sure a lot of fans would have wanted it to. Me, myself, I'm a big Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain fan. But his performances this season they've just not been quite there. I know we've obviously experimented with them a little bit, almost as like a centre-forward role, maybe as like a potential replacement for Bobby. When he comes out, I don't think that's his position. I think his best position is the right side of midfield, as you said, where he can drive at defences and and even take a shot from range, which he seems to be one of the few players in the squad that seem to be able to try and take those on. For me, it is just how happy they are to be this sort of rotational player. As you said, that there is a 60 million price tag on Naby Keita and likewise 30 on Oxlade-Chamberlain. Are they gonna see this as, we're happy to be this sort of rotational player in the midfield? We come in every now and then when we're needed, or maybe in the last 15-20 minutes of a game if we're pushing for a goal, because they are both very capable of scoring goals for us, and we've seen that for both Liverpool and Arsenal and Leipzig, where they were before.
Doug, I want to ask you in this instance here then, if not to keep Keita and Chamberlain around, do you think Chamberlain maybe would be looking to go, because he's pushing late 20s, early 30s now, and even Peter says Ox can be sold in January. I don't know if you sell someone in January, will you bring someone else in? But in terms of midfielders, when he came here, he was a key member of the squad when he first came here, once moving from Arsenal, and he was very key in that Champions League campaign, getting us all the way to the eventually to the semi-finals before he got injured against Roma, and then that was his season done. So, and he hasn't sort of really been back in that sense there. So do you think there is still somewhere for Chamberlain in the squad? I'd like to see him play more often as well. Like Adam says, I'm a fan of Ox as well, but does he give us enough to say you're going to be on the bench or you're going to get 20 minutes out of a game?
I think the problem is with these two is all the injuries. Naby, Naby getting injured again is just really, really frustrating as well. Oxlade-Chamberlain, I don't think he's been the same player since that Roma injury. Yes, he's shown sort of maybe glimpses. I remember the Arsenal 5-5 in the Carabao Cup where he scored an absolute screamer against Arsenal. We just haven't seen it, unfortunately. The thing is, I think this has been his first pre-season where he's actually not been injured, which is really, really good to see. He's obviously had a baby with his girlfriend as well. So I do think that there is still a place for him in the squad. The only problem is I don't think he's going to be playing as much. So I think you might be seeing him maybe in patches coming off the bench, or maybe in the League Cup. I don't see him being involved in the Champions League. But it's a shame because I was a big fan of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain when he came. I thought it was a very, very good signing when he came, and unfortunately, it's just the injuries have been part and parcel of his career, unfortunately. But I do think there is still time for him to get some games. I just think you might see him more in the League Cup.
I think, speaking of, that's a nice little segue there, because literally the next thing on my agenda here tonight, which is the EFL Cup a target for us this season? And if it is, are the players who have started, which normally you see, the players who play in a League Cup normally make it all the way if they make it to a final. Sometimes they'll bring a couple of one or two extras, depending on who your opposition is, shall we say. But I'll go to James on this one first. Just quickly, is the AFL Cup something that we actually want to try and go for this season with sort of bit players or the reserve team or anything like that? Or do we want to see us just attacking anything we can and just getting to whatever final we can?
I think any silverware is a good thing, right? So Klopp's always had the mindset whenever he's asked the question, we're always in these competitions and we're always going to try and win them, and then we always seem to get knocked out the third round. It just seems to be what happens, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I think this season, when we look at the depth that we have of the squad, I think now's the perfect opportunity to really say we've got this second string side that can actually really go quite far. We can obviously throw in a couple of few of the real first team players when we do get further along. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to go for it. And the same with the FA Cup when that comes around in January as well. I think this is the perfect time to really make sure we're getting the minutes and the legs of the sort of the second string, the younger players, so that they can come through, get the experience. Because we know for a fact when we do get round to January, February, March, that's when the legs start to get a bit heavy. There's the African Cup of Nations that's coming in as well. And when you do need your players like Minamino to come in and start playing more games on a weekly basis, you want them to be match fit and you want them to be able to survive those minutes as well as playing just in a League Cup game or an FA Cup game. So I think if we can carry that on through a lot further than what we have done previously, I think it's only going to be a huge benefit. Plus, who doesn't love a bit of silverware in the cabinet at the end of the year?
100%, man, 100%. Well, like SS says here, says, I think a lot will depend on the draw. If we get a top 6 team and play our reserves, we usually lose, which normally is the case, which is why I said depending on who your opposition is going to be, that's probably the team you're going to be fielding. But Adam, I'll ask you now as well, like, if this is going to be a cup we're going to go for, obviously we all want to win the Premier League. That is still yet to be seen. We're still flying under the radar a little bit. Some pundits and other fans are saying, like, well, Liverpool, they'll drop off, you know, the usual December, January, whatever the nonsense, and City will come back, or it's going to be Chelsea or whatever. And I think that works well for us, because when we fly under the radar, when we're not as in the faces, we have less pressure on ourselves. We'll just do our thing and we'll just roll with it. So do you think it's the same thing with the EFL Cup? If we just do our thing and let it roll with it, are we going to get far? Or if we do drop out, is it going to be a big detriment to our season?
Well, if we go out, it certainly won't be a big detriment to the season. Like Jimmy said, we want to win every piece of silverware we can. You know, you look at Man City aiming for the quadruple every year. I'm not saying that we're capable of doing that, but it's the right mentality to have. You want to win every trophy. It's just natural. With us, I'm just not convinced we have a big enough squad to actually go and fight on all fronts. I think we have the squad now to go further than we've certainly been in recent years. But as the comments have already picked out on a couple of occasions, you come up against a Manchester City, a Chelsea, even a Man United, that their second string teams are still basically first string teams for a lot of teams. You know, they'd finish high in the Premier League as a second string team. Liverpool, unfortunately, don't quite have that quality of depth. So I personally think Klopp probably knows this in his head, and he thinks, look, we're going to give this a good go. Obviously, we're going to try and get as far as we can, and if we can get, you know, sort of close to the final, a semis maybe, we could bring a couple big names in to try and push us all the way. I'm just personally not convinced this squad is quite there yet to be fighting on four fronts.
There has been a lot of talk on who is going to be a part of this squad predominantly, because we haven't really had a big transfer window. I think a lot of people say it has really been the best. I mean, Konate coming in has been great, because we did need someone to come in at a centre back role, and he's had 2 games in a row, 2 clean sheets, which is, you know, nothing wrong with that. Tsimikas, who came in last season, didn't get probably the game time that he probably wanted or deserved, but now he's getting that as well. So these are the sort of players where you say, okay, now's your time to step up. If you play well in these League Cups, which we give you, you know, for lack of a better phrase or term, like, we need to give the first teamers a rest, and you guys can jump on here. But they can definitely stake a claim to say, well, you know what, no, I deserve to be starting. And we've seen Tsimikas probably starting the better out of him and Robertson recently, so he might be saying, like, you know what, I'm good enough to play at left back for the next couple of games. But then again, City's coming. But before that, we have a game away to Brentford. Now, I want to get a dug on this one. Confidence for Brentford against us, because they won 7-0 in their match this morning, which sort of came as a bit of a shock. I don't think many people really saw them actually winning their game as comfortably as they did, but you know, they did win, and bloody hell, they made it look good. So are they going to be going into this game thinking, you know, it's only Liverpool, we can definitely do them? And okay, they beat Arsenal 2-0, but, you know, Arsenal, all that sort of stuff. But they went away and won at Wolves. So, you know, is there something that we need to be worried about? Not to get too much into it, but just as a maybe.
They are a very, very good team. Thomas Frank is a very, very good tactician. He's got this team firing, and I have to say, I think, you know, it's going to be a very, very tricky game. But I think you have to say that Brentford haven't come up against a Mo Salah yet. They haven't come up against Sadio Mane yet. So that's going to be interesting. I think the middle of the park is going to be very interesting. They've got a similar player to us in Christian Norgard, who is a very, very good player. Does all the, you know, the ugly stuff really, really well as well. So it's going to be a very interesting game, and they've got a very good goalkeeper in David Raya as well. Good defender in Ayer. They bought from Celtic as well. It's a very, very good squad. And then obviously you've got Ivan Toney. But nice to see Sergi Canos. Obviously didn't make it at Liverpool, so it'll be nice to see him as well. But if we keep playing the way we've been playing, I just feel that we'll be too strong for Brentford. But I'm really looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be a fantastic occasion. 5:30 on Saturday evening. So looking forward to it.
Is going to be a big game. Jimmy, I'll ask you this question here. When we do play away to Brentford, it is not going to be easy. As Chris Welch says here, morning Chris, he says, I rate Brentford the way they recruit and the way they play. So are we... Okay, it's a newly promoted team. It's the first time they're in the league, and it's the first time they're in the top flight for some ridiculous amount of years, and they're going to make every minute count. And we've seen teams who have come from the bottom up, like Leicester, for example. I'm not saying Brentford are going to win the league or anything, but we've seen when the desire is there and the fan base are there and they're backing them, they can really make life difficult for a lot of teams. So are we maybe going into Brentford and going to say, okay, well, let's see what you've got and try and be too casual with them, or do you think we're going to go there like Klopp always says, like, you know, control the game and do whatever the hell it is that we do?
I think Brentford sort of remind me of when Bournemouth first came up into the Premier League. You know, there's always going to be a bit of a difference when certain teams get promoted. There's some teams that come up every year and then within 12 months are sitting bottom of the ladder and they're already gone. Brentford have obviously been a bit of a surprise package so far. It would be great to see them continue that throughout the season, because I think that's the kind of stuff that the Premier League needs to see as well. The support and the fans at the stadium and the atmosphere that they create, that's some proper football stuff, and that's the stuff that Jurgen Klopp actually loves, whether it's at Anfield or whether it's away. He absolutely thrives on it, and he will already have those players told what to expect and how to treat it as well. So it's going to be a fantastic game. It's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. I think it's going to be a challenge for us as well, because I don't think we really know what to expect from Brentford as well, as to how they're going to play, how they're going to set up. They have played a few games already this season, but how much do we really know about their players? How much do we really know about how they're going to set up and try and exploit what we see as our weaknesses at times as well? So we have to be very cautious about how we take that. But I think we've got the quality to see it through to the end still. It's
not a bad prospect to be in there. I mean, the hardest match we've had thus far, arguably, you would say, would be Chelsea. And, you know, for all accounts, we probably should have won that game, but we didn't. Some would say it was a very poor attacking display from Liverpool in the second half. Some will say it was great defensive display from Chelsea in that second half, but it was 1-1. So Brentford away could be a tricky one. And, you know, they've drawn a game against Villa. They lost to Brighton the other week. They beat Wolves away with 10 men as well after they've scored 2 goals, but 7-0. And they're coming up against the Liverpool team who will be rested, who will be recovered, and will be ready to rock and roll. So I think we'll wait to see what happens there. But as Doug said, Sergio Canos, I thought I recognised that name from somewhere. Why do I know this name from somewhere? Of course, he was a former player in Liverpool. So, you know, it's always a thing. Players who play against Liverpool, former players, always end up scoring against us. So it might be written in the stars that it happens. I hope it doesn't, but it might happen. But Peter says he goes, oddly enough, them being at home favours us because they will come out and attack, and it will be similar to Leeds. And it's a good example there, because Leeds like to play the attacking football, and we got them 3 times over. Adam, just quickly, just on the Brentford one here, are we going to see a change in approach from the way we play, or are we just going to see the quick style that we have, the standard back line? Van Dijk, Matip maybe back after his break. The midfield might be a bit of an interesting one here. If Keita's going to be out with a tinge from digging the dirt out the turf. You know, Jones might be in for a start. The front 3 come back. Firmino maybe a bit early for him. No Thiago though, but surely we're going to have enough for Brentford.
Yeah, I think we'll have enough. And look, as Peter Kay there, very, very well picked out. The way Brentford have played so far this season does actually favour Liverpool. And that's not to say they won't be a test. I certainly think they'll be a test, and they've put a lot of good teams under some pressure so far this season. But you mentioned Brighton coming away with the win. Brighton try and play, obviously not to the same level, but it's not too dissimilar style from how we like to play. They do play quite a high line. They try and knock the ball around with pace, with speed. They play the ball down wide a lot, and they look to press people from the front. it's not too dissimilar from the way Liverpool like to play. And obviously, like you said, they came away with the win against Brentford. I know they dominated Wolves for large spells, but there was certainly pressure points there that Wolves were able to exploit. It's been a thing of Wolves this season, though, where they've just not quite been able to find the back of the net. And they probably should have had a few wins under their belt that they've not been able to get. I think Brentford will be a big test. They're going to have momentum. They're going to have a lot of confidence coming into this one. With the way that they have started the season, I do expect them to become Premier League regulars after this season. I think they'll do really well. However, as some of you have mentioned already just there, the quality that we have, I don't think there should be really any excuse to not win this game.
It makes sense. It makes sense that for all accounts we are definitely going to win. Now, as we are talking about the Norwich result and the EFL Cup, our next opponents will be decided tomorrow at the full-time whistle whenever the game finishes between Man United and West Ham, and we will face either Man United or West Ham. And as we said just earlier on, the squad we start with in this particular competition is probably not going to be the same one that's going to be run through. But if we do end up getting a Man United in the cup, surely Solskjaer will be probably playing some of his part players, not playing full timers. You're not going to probably see Ronaldo playing in an EFL Cup or anything like that. But if we do end up seeing us against the Man United, do you think Klopp will probably say, you know what, let's go all out and let's actually beat United wherever we may play? Doug, I'll ask you that question. If it is Man United, let's say.
I think if it's Man United, I think we'll go all out. I think it might be a similar team to yesterday, potentially, with a bit of youth, a bit of experience. And then, if we're at home, obviously got the Anfield atmosphere. That might spur on the players a little bit as well. West Ham are again a very, very good side as well. So it's going to be interesting. Whoever we get in the draw is going to be tough anyway. But I'm hoping that we don't actually get a Premier League team. I'm hoping we get I'm just hoping for a home tie. I think we're all hoping for a home tie. We haven't had one of them for a while. So hopefully we don't meet a Premier League team. But whoever we meet, I feel the Anfield atmosphere will get us through.
I don't know. Someone said we was either going to be United or West Ham. I don't know if is that how it still works. Don't they do the pot with the balls or anything like that? Is that still how they pick team these days? I don't know. They just tend to make their things known beforehand. Winner of game 1 versus winner of game 7 or something like that. So, anyways, whoever it's going to be, I think it's going to be good showings. Adam, silly question, but I'll ask you anyways. You've been to Anfield, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm jealous already. I've only been there once, and that was when they were rebuilding the main stand, so I didn't get to do a full stadium tour, so I'm still upset about that. But there is news that's come out that there is another Anfield expansion, that they're looking to add another 7,000 more seats to Anfield, making its capacity from 55 to 61,000, and construction will be the same way they did the main stand, and the build's taking place throughout the season while the matches continue to be played. Surely this is a good thing. I don't see why it would be a bad thing at all.
Of course, it's a good thing. You can't really have any complaints when we're adding extensions to the stadium, especially how you're considering how hard it is for fans to get tickets. I think every time you jump in a members queue to get tickets, there's at least 30,000 people waiting in there as well. So it's certainly hard. And I was actually in the Anfield Road end on Saturday against Crystal Palace. It was the first time I've ever actually been in the Anfield Road end. And the atmosphere there, let me tell you, it was a lot better than what I expected. In that end, it was really, really good. So I think to build on that point, where it is the smallest part of the stadium. A few restrictive views there as well. So I'm hoping they look to fix that by. I think they're looking to raise the roof a little bit. So look, it can only be a good thing. Letting more people in. More noise around the already iconic Anfield atmosphere, and I think Anfield Road is probably the perfect place to do it right now.
Yeah, so it is going to be the Anfield Road end, and it says they're looking to add around 400 matchday roles in addition to the 2,200 people already at the club, which is good. And they had the bit of that fiasco with the furlough and all that sort of stuff a year ago, so I mean, it looks like everything's been sorted out in that sense there. We don't want to go back to that nonsense again happening, but it all looks good. And 95% of all the staff at Anfield do live in the Liverpool region, so it's good to create more jobs for the locals, because that's what we like. We like local jobs for the local folks. James, I want to ask you this question. Adam made a good point there. Adding more people increases the Anfield noise, and we've actually had a few debates on our show, the Match Debate, and also on Redfix, about the noise itself and whether it is the broadcasters not giving us exactly what is really happening at Anfield, or are the Anfield crowd just not actually as vocal as probably we thought they might be. More fans equals more noise for you?
100% every single time. I think the fact that we're actually able to get this across the line now, when, what was it, maybe 10 years ago, we were talking about leaving Anfield at one point under previous ownership, who shall not be mentioned anymore, it is an absolute delight. It's been for years where Anfield has been sitting at that sort of, what I've always seen since I was growing up is sort of that mid-tier where you've got a great stadium but it's just not quite big enough. It could always be bigger, you can always get more people in. There's no doubt about the noise. I think it's the broadcasters for the most part. They like to turn the noise down and try and keep the commentary up louder, which is frustrating because they most of the time they don't actually know what they're talking about, especially when you're watching from Australia. It's an absolute nightmare. So I think if we can get another 6,000-7,000 people in the stadium, then it's only going to be a huge benefit for the boys on the field and for the club as a whole. We've obviously just gone through, well, at least in the UK, you guys have had 18 months of COVID where the stadiums have been shut down and the players have just been playing in empty seats, and that's not good for income whatsoever. You know, obviously the summer that we've just had, we've only brought one player in and we've offloaded quite a lot as well. We're trying to balance the books in the right way. And the best thing we can do is only secure players on better contracts. So hopefully that in turn then obviously leads into a greater generation of funds, a greater generation of money for the club, and then really secures a stronger future for us going forward to continue competing.
So shout out to Thiago's father, the owner-creator of the Red Sea, and he actually says, could we be Spurs and start pumping in artificial noise? I do not want to go back to that nonsense because we already went through that when no fans were in the stadiums, and okay, it did help a little bit when you're watching, you know, commentary, watching game rather with commentary, and there's a bit of noise there, but it's very hit and miss, and you can tell it's not authentic. So I'd rather just the silence and hearing players yell at, swear, and cuss at each other. I like the raw, you know, the authenticness of being on a football pitch, because we've all played football before. There is no, oh, sorry about that, mate. Oh, not to worry, not a bother. It's like, you know, get up your F and C and, you know, twat and all this other nonsense. So you want to hear that happening on the pitch. But Thiago's father also says the expansion is needed in order to compete, and we know there is a lot of clubs have moved stadiums to compete. Obviously, Man City built their main stadium, the Etihad, and Pep Guardiola is still asking for fans to please go over there and support the team. Arsenal left from Highbury and went to the Emirates to compete, and how's that worked out for him recently? But we haven't moved stadium. We've been in the same place and we've just expanded, much like an Old Trafford and Chelsea. I think at one stage they were looking to move stadium or expand their stadium as well. I don't know what's happening there specifically. Yeah. So, but I mean, is this like a natural progression? We expand so we can keep competing. The more people in the stadium, the more money that comes in. The more players you can purchase. As we just said, Doug, I'll ask you that question. Is this basically just a whole thing of like, in order for us to compete, we need to be up the top when it comes to our facilities as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at Old Trafford, I think that's expanded to 76,000. I think they're trying to get more seats as well. Obviously, you've got the Emirates, you've got the Etihad, of course, as well. But yeah, we've stayed in the same stadium. I know Everton are moving to, I think, somewhere near the docks, I think, as well. So
moving
look,
onto the docks.
Anfield is just inspired by history, and there's no. I mean, yes, I know. Obviously, there was a talk in the early sort of 2000s that we're going to move to a new place, but no, I think to stay at Anfield, I think If we move from Anfield, you lose that iconic atmosphere. You lose you just lose the history of the place. So I think to expand it is fantastic, and don't be surprised if the other stands get expanded in the near future. I think you'll probably see this very, very close to potentially about 76,000 potentially.
Interesting point you bring up there, because Thiago's father again says his worry is if and when they do look to do the COP, could we lose the soul like Arsenal, West Ham, and other? Of course, West Ham. I forgot about West Ham moving from their home ground going to the Olympic Stadium. I used to love watching West Ham play at their home ground, and when they moved, I was like, damn, there goes West Ham. You know what I mean? It's not West Ham anymore. So I mean, do we actually see the COP getting redone again? We know it's been done once when they had to get rid of the railings, and they actually put the seating in there and all that sort of stuff. Is there a risk of that happening again? Adam, I'll ask you. Do you think that is a potential risk, for lack of a better term?
Risk, I think there's definitely an area for concern there. I think just mainly because, look, I can tell you first-handed, the COP, they don't stop singing from an hour before kickoff to 20 minutes after kickoff. To 20 minutes after the full-time whistle. That place is electric every single game, and I think the risk you run by expanding it is you let in more. I don't want to say casuals, but more fans that aren't going to be as up for it as most of the people already sitting in the COP are. Obviously, on the flip side, you could say it enhances it. You know, do they get immersed into the experience and sucked in by the atmosphere, and all of a sudden you've got maybe an extra 7,000 people on that side of the stadium that are chanting and screaming every game. I think it could obviously go one of two ways. I'd like to hope that it goes the latter. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a risk, but maybe just a slight concern.
James, 40,000 people in the COP, like the yellow wall at Dortmund, as Thiago's father says. What do you reckon? Yay?
Could you imagine? My God, the red wall, here it comes, unbelievable. It's a good question, a really good question. But I think when you look at those other stadiums, those other teams, they've moved ground. They've gone somewhere completely different, and they've gone to grounds which have been purpose built for not just Arsenal, for example. There's been a multitude of things done there. You look at the Olympic Stadium; it was made for the Olympics. It wasn't made for West Ham. It's just that they've now taken it over. I think if you do expand the COP, maybe I'm being biased, but I think majority of Liverpool fans are at a level where when they walk into that stadium, they are a part of this unique culture with this club where, whether you even realise it or not, you're singing, you're shouting, you're bawling, you are backing every single player to the high hills, no matter who it is. I personally could only see it as a good thing for the club. Personally, I think if they're already expanding Anfield Road, there's always been things said about Anfield Road not being as loud, as passionate, as into it as other areas of the stadium, particularly the COP. But if we've got someone sitting here who can say firsthand what they've experienced is completely different to what we generally hear. I think an expansion of the COP can only be a good thing.
Thiago's father once again with the gems tonight. He says, could a solution be moving season ticket holders all into the COP? I don't know how those who are there for a meat pie and a drink will take kindly to people shouting for 90 minutes non-stop. And just to go what Adam said when it comes to active fans, I mean, being an active fan myself in the A-League in Australia for the team I follow, I'm in amongst it all. Like, I play one of the drums in the active area, and I know what it's like to go 90 minutes, full tilt. So I agree. When you have, and we've had a brand new stadium built for ourselves a couple of years ago now as well. Our old stadium, we grew out of it, knocked down. We went to 2 or 3 stadiums, rotating for about 3 years, and that was just a disaster altogether. We had a stadium which you could probably say was a mix between the Olympic Stadium and the Etihad, because that was apparently the best thing they could find for us. It was a complete disaster. Anyways, now we're back in. We sort of feel home, but it's not the same. It's like when you've renovated your house, you're like, well, it's still your house, but it's not as you remember it is better in a sense, but it's not the same, and that does bring in a lot more different people who want to say, "Oh, that looks like fun. I want to go try that." But then they're sitting there and they're watching you, or they've got their phone out, and it's like, it's selfies. This is awesome. It's like, I appreciate that, but like, you're here to do a specific job, and I don't think the whole season contingent of ticket holders into the COP would be a good idea. Sorry, Tiaga's father, to break it to you. But damn, I would definitely love to see it. But he also says he's been in the Centurion stand, the Kenny Dalglish stand, and he's done the main stand at Anfield, main stand and Anfield Road. It's never the COP, but witnessing it firsthand is a beautiful thing. It's almost just like looking at it that just gives you that sense of like awe. Am I right in saying that? Doug, I'll ask you, is that correct?
Well, sorry to August father, but I'm going to say this now. I've actually been in every single stand in Anfield. My first ever game was the Sheffield United game in February 2007 when we won 4-0. I was right behind the goal. I was in the upper Anfield Road end. And then ever since then, like I've been in the new main stand. That new main stand is absolutely fantastic. When you go in, it's like, wow. So a big difference to what it was. I was in the cup against Sunderland, I think, when Fernando Torres turned inside and then curled it past Craig Gordon. That was 2009, 2010, I think it was. So yeah, being in the cup is fantastic. It's just something that you want to do for a long time. But yeah, my favourite's probably the main stand, actually, because the new main stand is absolutely stunning. From where like if you're up above, then you've got a very, very good view of it. But I've been in the Kenny Dalglish stand as well. I've had some good memories there as well. The Liverpool Manchester United game when we won 3-1, Dirk Kuyt with his probably the easiest hat trick ever.
The 3-yard hat trick.
Yeah. So it's, but just being in Anfield is just fantastic, and going to a game is even better. I tried to get down as much as I can, but as obviously James has alluded to, it's not easy. It's not easy getting to these games anyway. But yeah, just being in the atmosphere of Anfield is just something else.
I'm jealous. I'd love to experience it one day myself. I mean, like I said, when I went there, it was semi-closed. I didn't get to really immerse myself in it, but I saw it. I saw the same. Said the COP. I'm just like, oh, wow. Like Tiger's father says, like, he's experienced this feeling twice through your body, and that at a Jay-Z concert and Anfield. So there's two experiences having electricity running through him. So I hope Jay-Z was worth it, man. But I mean, look. Expansions are only good things. Hopefully it brings good things to us, and if it brings more good things, it means we're going to get more wins, like the 3-0 against Norwich. We now have a couple of days between our game away to Brentford, and then we have a small tie away to Porto, which we've had good tidings in recent memory there. And then the big one the week after against Manchester City, which is going to be us versus Man City is always the game now where everyone looks at it and says, okay, this is going to decide which way the title swings this season, which is complete nonsense. Like, it's complete bullshit. Like, it's 6 rounds in all of a sudden, and it's like, yeah, okay, this game so early on is going to determine who's going to lead the pack. I mean, I want them to forget about us leading the pack, to be honest. I just want us to go about our business. Focus on City and Chelsea, or United for that matter, with Ronaldo and the feel-good factor and the honeymoon period and all that sort of stuff. So, but there will be a lot of football to discuss in between all that. So I think on that, we will leave it there. And as Tiaga's father says, smash the likes, hit the bell for notifications. A lot of shows on the Red Sea podcast, like our show, which we do on Monday nights for us, which is called The Match Debate, where we talk about the game that just passed. I didn't come up with the title, don't look at me. We've got the Redfix, which we do sort of like a semi-casual chit-chat and other topics, and of course the Aussie boys as well, Peter and George, they focus on the training ground, which happens on Thursday nights, which I think is Wednesday evenings or Wednesday mornings for the overseas folk, and a lot more shows all in between on the Red Sea. But where can we find you boys on the socials? Doug, I'll ask you first.
Well, you can find me on my Twitter page, which is at Ernod_1992. You can find me on the Dugout Football channel, YouTube channel. I'm also on Instagram at Douglas.Horn, and I'm on Facebook as well, Douglas James Horn. But thank you very much for having me, and I'd love to come back at some point in the future.
Would be our pleasure. And Adam, for yourself as well.
My Twitter and Instagram is literally again just below Adam Murphy 11 with the 2 Y's because I can't even get my own name on socials anymore. You'll also see me occasionally on theredmentv.com and sometimes even over on the YouTube channel and on the Total Liverpool podcast and Total Screamers podcast as well.
Fantastic. And Mr. Jimmy Nicholson, just for posterity's sake, where can we find you as well?
You'll just find me sitting here on a Wednesday night just waiting to chat to you, Nick. But I'm also going to be online just here, wherever the thing is. There you go, at @NicholsonJimmy_.
Fantastic. There's a reason why we call you Aussie Robbo as well, so thank you very much for that. Just final fair few comments. Rizla says, Doug, you the man, mates. And we've also got Hector Joseph says, such a pleasure to watch this show. I love it. Appreciate the nice words there, Hector. And one final question, just to squeeze this in there. This one will be a good one. Rizla says, what do you guys think of Tsimikas? I think he missed the start of the show, but we'll just go roughly here. I think he's technically a better player than Robertson, a better understanding of the game. He might be a better all-round player. Ooh, what do we say there? Who wants to put their hand up on this one?
I'll take the starting. He's a good player. He is a good player. He started the season very well. I think the ceiling for him is potentially higher, obviously because he is so young. But are we forgetting that Andy Robertson is probably the best left back in world football?
Thank you.
And Andy Robertson is so good and has been so good for a number of years now. I don't think we can watch, as much as I like Costas, I don't think we can watch, what has it been, 3-4 games of him and to just declare him better than Robertson. I'm not sure it works like that, unfortunately.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I do not, I saw something from a Twitter page this morning that was like, oh, we should play 3-4-3 and put Andy Robertson as a centre back. No.
Oh no!
No. It works with Kieran Tierney. It works with Kieran Tierney in the Scotland national team, but no, definitely not playing Andy Robertson as a centre back. No way.
Not happening.
Wow.
Peter's Robert. Robert is our number one. I don't know if he actually believes that or not, but sure.
Keep that there.
Screenshot.
There we go. I'll remember that, Peter.
Yeah, fine. Competition for places is all that we need, and that's what we have. 100% competition is healthy for the squad, which means we have players who are willing to come in and do the job for us and get us to the highest possible place we can be. But we'll leave it there so we don't keep going on because we don't want to open up another can of worms. So we'll leave it there. Once again, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Redfix. Hopefully you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. It is on YouTube. Find us on Twitter as well. Of course, I forgot our little Twitter there. You can follow us at Red Sea Down Under and follow the mainstream at Red Sea Podcast. And that is it from us. Subscribe to the show. All that good stuff. We are out. Hopefully we do some damage against Brentford.
Tell the world.